From Philadelphia, the city that pulsates with the beat and the rhythms of yesterday and today, it's time for the Geator with the Heater, the boss with the hot sauce, Jerry Blavat.
60 seconds make 1 minute, 60 minutes make 1 hour, 24 hours make 1 day, and out of that 24 hours, 2.5 hours are dedicated by the young teenager to the hit this show on the radio. So without further ado, let's carry on through now.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off!
Young teenager, gather round. To the sound I'm a putting down.
Well, how are you? I hope you had a great Halloween. And of course, here it is. Did you change the clocks? If you didn't change the clocks, you're going to miss the rock. At any rate, it's so good to have you here, and I don't have to tell you how I miss you. I know you people out there saying, Geator, we miss memories in Margate. Well, you know, with the change of weather and with the change in the clock and things like that, we had to just do some adjustments, but I give you my word, we will have a venue and we will do some special events at Memories in Margate. Now, let me tell you about this show today. Before I go to Chicago, Illinois, I want to tell you about a wonderful disc jockey who was a big part not only of my life, but your life too. His name was Ed Hurst. Ed Hurst just passed away recently and in his 90s. And Ed Hurst was the man really, along with Joe Grady, they were responsible for Bandstand because Joe Grady and Ed Hurst had a show called the 950 Radio Club, and it was from WPN on Walnut Street. It was a big radio studio where they invited kids after school to come in and dance in the studio, and they would broadcast it live on WPN 950. And I have so many wonderful memories of Ed Hurst because if you read my book, You Only Rock Once, I talk about the fact that there was a point in my life before I went on radio or TV where I was a promotion man. And I had the group, as you know, Danny and the Juniors. So I would have to visit radio stations to promote the records. And I would visit WP. And at that time, they had a wonderful program director by the name of Gertie Katzman. And Gertie Katzman used to program for Ed Hurst. So I would always see Ed Hurst and Joe Grady. Then in 1960, when I began doing my radio show, and then in the early part of the 60s, when I started on TV, the first TV show I did was a show called Summertime at the Pier. And I did it with some of the kids that danced at the Chevu and Wagner's Ballroom, Bobby Nixon, Eddie Nixon. And we would do a regular 10-minute segment on Steel Pier. From that show, he wound up doing a show in South Philadelphia called Aquaramba. I did that show. And then in 1964, because of that show, I did the pilot when Dick Clark was leaving Philadelphia and said to WFIL, you know, you really should consider, and this is all in the book, You Only Rock Once, you should consider doing a TV show with Jerry Blavat. But it's because of Aquarama and Steel Pier, because they saw what I could do on television. So he did the pilot, and I left Aquarama, and of course his wife Sissy, who I loved, was really annoyed at me. How can you leave the show? Beep, beep. I said, well, Sis, I got a shot. And Ed Hurst said to her, Sissy, leave the Geator alone. I mean, he did great things for us, but it's time for him to go on his way. And I will never forget that. So this man was very important to me in my lifetime, as was Jocko Henderson, Sir Lancelot, John Bandy, Lloyd Fatman. These were all of the guys who were my mentors back in the day. And back in the day, I never forget visiting Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, as you know, was always a music mecca. I'm going back from the very, very beginning with the blues, with Jimmy Reed, with Little Walter, and all of the wonderful little labels. VJ Records, Chess, Checker, Argo. So I'm going to take you right now to Chicago, Illinois, and meet a man who has had hit after hit and was so much responsible for the continuation of the Chicago sound. Where is my main man, Marshall Thompson? Marshall, are you there? My man! Can you see me? Can you hear me? I can't hear my... Oh! How are you, my man?
How you doing, man? Very excited to talk to you, buddy. You know,
Man, it's a pleasure to see you. I got to tell you, the last time you and I saw each other is when we worked at the Kimmel Center. And boy, when you did Oh Girl, oh my man, Hey Girl. And
that's one of the favorites. That's one of the favorites.
Man, let me ask you the question. For the people out there, we talk about the Chicago sound, and you know it better than anybody else. I'm going back with VJ Records. As you know, at that time, Vivian Carter, her real name was Vivian Bracken.
That's right.
You know, and going back with the Spaniels, going back with the Flamingos, going back with the Impressions, going back with Jerry Butler, going back with the Dells and all those cats. You know, was that an influence for you to continue in the Chicago sound?
Well, what happened is, before I started playing drums with Gladys Knight, before I started the Shine Lights going, my uncle was playing on all the VJ. He was a drummer for the VJ Records. So he played on the Dells and the groups back then, and those and the Spaniels and groups like that. And so I grew up listening to all of them. That's how we got our Shine Light sound, from the Dells and the Eldorados and the Spaniels, like that. So playing drums, leaving that there after I left Gladys Knight at the Regal Theater, she gave me my first break at the Regal Theater. She needed a drummer. So I was
Gladys Knight.
Yeah, Gladys Knight and the Pips.
By the way, not to interrupt, let me tell you about Gladys. You know, you've done the Soul Train cruise. And of course, it's been postponed this year, but the cruise will be going out. And we'll tell the people how they can get tickets and how they can get their cabins for Soul Train, that cruise. But Gladys is going to be with us on the Malt Shop Memories cruise. And we would have been leaving this weekend, but it's been postponed to next year. But Gladys is one of the headliners. Mary Wilson, as you know, is the headliners. And, you know, you've been a part of that. And for you people out there, if you want to get your cabins, right now is the time for Malt Shop Memories Cruise. Because if you mention my name, and there you see it on the screen, how you can get your ticket, how you can get your cabin right now at a discount. If you mention my name, if you mention Gladys Knight, and if you mention my man, Marshall Thompson, you will get a discounted rate for this cruise, which is going to be incredible. So that's the way that goes. Now, let me tell you this. When you began, you were originally called the Highlights, right?
Absolutely. It was the Highlights in high school. Coming out of high school, DuSable, Hyde Park, and Inglewood High School.
But you changed the name because obviously there was a confusion with the real group called the Highlights, right?
Well, it was a group at Mercury Records. We went down to Mercury to get our first. We had a song that my uncle had cut in the basement, and we took it down to Mercury to get a break because it was kind of a little good record. So we took it down there to get a deal. So when we got down there and we told them our name, it says Marshall and the Highlights. They say, well, you know, we got a group already here called the Highlights.
Yeah.
So we had to think about what could we do. So what we do, put a C in front of it and maybe Shy-Light.
Well, that's like Chicago. Shy Lights, Chicago.
Right.
Now, we talked about the early days with VJ, and one of your dear friends was an old friend of mine. His name was Abner Hewitt. And for the audience out there, Abner Hewitt was the man that really ran VJ Records. And when VJ was sold, he wound up working with Berry Gordy. You remember Abner?
That's right. That's Abner. That's him. That's him. Yeah, I traveled. When I left Gladys Knight and the Pips after I played drums there for the first week, I went on tour with Major Lance with Monkey Time. He had the Monkey Time record out. So I went on and played drums with him. And that's when I got into Abner on the road a lot.
Well, you know, Lance, here we go now, another Chicago name. Curtis Mayfield was responsible for Major Lance, if you remember, going back Duke of Earl, all of those wonderful early things.
Absolutely.
Now,
Curtis wrote Monkey Time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And he also wrote for Jerry Butler's brother, Billy Butler.
Absolutely. We was at the same label with Billy Brother at the same time.
What was it, OK Records?
No, they was with OK, and I was just going over to Brunswick. But by the time I got over there, I was over there with Jackie Wilson. So we started off with Brunswick Records.
Now, Carl Davis was the producer for all basically your things, right?
Yeah, Carl Davis from Eugene Records, the guy sang lead, was singing lead from our group. They was both producers.
How that happened, because a lot of people didn't know this, and you know this, Marsh. There was a point where Jackie Wilson's manager, Nat Tannenbaum, knew that Jackie needed a different sound other than what he was doing, Alone at Last and all of that early stuff. So he wanted to hook up with the Chicago sound.
Right.
Now, how yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. How'd that happen?
Well, what happened is, after I had the Jackson 5, I had the Jackson 5 working them all over Chicago. So what happened, we got a gig at the Wrigley Theater, and the Jackson 5, we let them open up the show for us. So what I did is, I went up there to try to get the Motown. I wasn't even going over there with Jackie Wilson at first. I was trying to get the Motown, so I went upstairs and talked to Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers. I told Bobby, hey, Bobby, could you get the Starlights to Motown? He says, oh, yeah, I think about that. Then the Jackson 5 was tearing the stage up downstairs. So he said, who was that making all that noise down there, all them girls screaming like that? I said, that's a little group we play around Chicago at the little clubs around here called the Jackson 5. And I said, you want to go down there and I'll take you down there and introduce you to Joe Jackson, their father. Because me and Joe Jackson were partners. We were partners for 52 years. So I took him down there and introduced him to Joe Jackson. And the next day, I get a call on the phone. Hey, Marshall, we're on our way to Motown. I said, what? But he's going to be taking me to Motown. So he ended up taking the Jackson 5 to Motown, and they got their deal. And then I was on the bus downtown, and I ran into Major Lance downtown again. I said, Major, where you going, man? He said, I'm going up there to see Carl Davis. Our office is right around the corner. You want to go up there with us? I said, man, yeah, I want to go up there. So I went up there and I met Carl Davis. And then I came back and told Eugene and Squirrel and Red. I said, man, we got an audition down there with Mr. Carl Davis. So we went down there and did the audition for Carl Davis.
Audience out there, we got to let them know that Eugene and Squirrel were part of the Shy-Lights. And
yeah, that's
Eugene
the Shy-Lights.
was producing most of the songs, right?
Yeah, Eugene Record and Robert Squirrel Lester and Creedell Red Jones. So when we got down there, I was standing at the top of the desk up there. And so I went down after that. I got the job to play drums behind Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson was coming up the steps. And I like to froze. I like to went crazy. I said, who? Is that Jackie Wilson? So he was coming up there. So he heard us singing our background and singing on, for our audition. And Jackie Wilson told Carl Davis, sign them boys. You got to sign them. Them boys can sing. He said, well, he only just sang, Marshall. I'm playing drums on one of your cuts in there. Don't burn no bridges. So I went in there. So we got to be friends. We ended up on the road with Jackie Wilson for what, 3 years?
Yeah. The Artistics also backed Jackie on Squeezer and Teaser, and also the Whispers when they had the song Whispers Getting Louder.
Absolutely.
That Chicago sound, you talk about Motown, you talk about the Philly sound, you talk about the LA sound, but that Chicago sound, Marshall, is so soulful. And Carl Davis, man, an old friend of ours, Tommy V, TV.
That's right.
I mean, he had all those groups with Queen's booking. Remember those
That's
days?
Right. That's right. He the one took me over there. Took me over to Queen. T say, Marsh, I want y'all to come over here. We're going to book y'all over here. I say, hey, come on. And I went over there, and then T told me, he said, listen, I'm going to put you on Flip Wilson's show. I thought he was kidding. He said, I'm going to put you on the Flip Wilson show. I said, man, we ain't going to be on no free Tommy T say, yes, you is going to be on there. Tommy B say, you're going to be on there next week. And next week, they gave us a call. And we had just broke Have You Seen Her? He said, I want you to take Old Girl with you when Have You Seen Her? I said, I ain't going to take the Old Girl, T. That ain't no hit record. He said, man, trust me. You take Old Girl with you, you're going to have a #1 record. So we took it on Flip Wilson's show and did Have You Seen Her and Old Girl. Old Girl went straight to #1 in 30 days.
Geraldine.
that's,
Geraldine.
that's right. That's right.
You know, for our audience, let me paint a picture for you about the record business the way it was. There were certain agencies that handled the stars. GMAC, William Morris, they handled all of the big names. But there was a agency called Queen's Booking Agency. Handled Aretha Franklin, handled Flip Wilson, handled the Shy Lights, handled Jerry Butler, all of the black artists, and the woman that ran it was Ruth Bowen. Remember Ruth?
Yeah, that was my brother there. Ruth Bowen. She introduced me to the first time with Ray Charles. She had Ray Charles up there. And I found out, I learned how to talk to her. I talked to Ray Charles and said, wow, Ray Charles. I mean, I was just going crazy, all these stars that she had up there. Big stars.
You know, as you look back at all these wonderful artists, and God bless, you're still with us, and so many of the other wonderful R&B, rhythm and blues artists are with us. You know, we lived at a wonderful time when music, even today, speaks for what we feel. Do you miss all of these wonderful artists that were our mentors?
Well, you know what? I'm telling you something. I run into it right today. I go out and go out of my big gate outside of my home here. And I go outside in the car and I I try to figure out where I'm going. I say, everybody's going. So I just turn my car around, go back in my gate, and go back into the garage and go back upstairs and rest. I mean, all our friends are gone, man. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, who can we name? And then one time Herb Kent told me, he said, Kurt Marshall, we're going to have everybody at my birthday party. I said, okay. I said, Herb, name me 5. He said 1, 2. He got to 3. He couldn't name no more. Everybody else was dead.
Oh, man. The Regal Theater, the Regal in Chicago. Now, I got to tell our audience here in Philadelphia, the Regal Theater was like the Uptown Theater in Philadelphia. It featured all of wonderful black artists back in those days. And Rodney Jones, that was disc jockey back then, right?
That's right. E. Rodney Jones. That's it.
Wow.
He the one brought us to the Regal Theater, him and Purvis Band. You know. We played the Regal Theater. You know, back in them days, we had a whole circuit. We had the Uptown in Philly, we had the Howard Theater in Baltimore, we had the Royal Theater in Baltimore, the Howard in Washington, D.C., and then back to the Regal Theater.
The Fox in Detroit.
The Fox in Detroit, Michigan, the Grand Ballroom, everything. And when we had a nice circuit of places to go to keep working back then. But now, of course, you know, we didn't switch up. Now we're doing the arenas now. So,
But, you know, your career just has kept right on going. I mean, but all of the music. I mean, a lot of the cats are going. Eugene is no longer with us, correct? The Eugene record?
right. That's right.
You know,
Yes, the world is gone. I'm the last man standing.
but listen, you're the good man because what you're doing, you're carrying on the tradition that was started. Now, I talked about the Chicago sound. We talked about VJ. Tell me about Chess, which was across the street from VJ back in those days.
Yeah, with Chess, you know, they end up with the day always at Chess, and then they had the blues, all the blues of there, Jimmy Reed, Muddy Waters, all of them went over to Chess. And we had a lot of, then they had Fanchella Bass over there, they had Jackie Ross, they had the Jims. They had quite a few artists up the street. That was right down the street from us, really, on the other side of the street.
You know, and the Dells, who originally recorded on VJ, wind up recording on Chess later on in their career. And
Absolutely.
And the big cat there, if you remember, was Harvey Fuqua.
Harvey Fuqua. Boy, that was the man. That was the man. He did a lot of the Detroit stuff too. In Detroit for all the groups up there as well. And he wrote like crazy. Woo.
Well, you know, and he brought Etta James to the Chess Brothers, if you remember. Etta James, she was recording all the West Coast.
No, I remember everything. Just at last.
You know, I think of Harvey. You and I know, I don't know for you people out there, but Harvey was married to Berry Gordy's sister.
Sure was.
Right, and Marvin Gaye was married to Berry's other sister, Anna.
Absolutely.
And Harvey played a major role. at the beginning with Motown Records with the Spinners, his original Spinners, if you remember, before.
It's a shame.
Yep, going back then. Tell me,
Wow.
tell me about the fondest memories when you were first starting out. I mean, it's like when I talk to Gary U.S. Bonds, Frankie Valli, all of the wonderful people that we talk to, even with Gladys, no one ever expected to be where we are today. You know, did you ever think that this thing would still be going on with you in all these years?
I never knew that we would get far as we are today and where we're going next year. Because I know we started off doing what we did. Gladys, like I said, Gladys gave me my first break where I was sitting at her sound check. The drummer couldn't play her drum for her show. So she called me up there to play drums. So when I went up there, I played drums and got that job. And then it went on and on and on. I took Eugene Record out of the taxi cab. He was driving a taxi cab. Squirrel in the Shaw Lights, he was a welder. And I took Red out of the post office and took them to Houston, Texas for their first gig, big gig. And then come back, went on the road with Jackie Wilson, and we were singing the wrong side of our song for a whole year. We were saying the B side of Have You Seen Her? So we got to St. Louis, Missouri at Kiel Auditorium, and we sung everything but Have You Seen Her? We came off the stage, and people were saying, Have you seen it? Have you seen it? Over and over and over. So Jim Gates and Bonnie Hayes, he said, Marshall, y'all got to get back on that stage and sing Have You Seen It? They're going to tear this place up. We say, man, we don't know that. Our band don't know no Have You Seen It? That's the B-side. We haven't rehearsed it. He said, well, I tell you what, you better get out there and say, do, 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 do. We did that for about 15 minutes, the same thing over and over. That's all we knew. do, 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 do. And the people just went crazy, man. Went crazy. We went back to the hotel. I called Carl Davis. I said, Carl, we've been singing the wrong side for a year. He said, we know. We get ready to turn it over and put it out. It was on the album, on the Part of the People album. And man, next thing I know, we was gone, man.
You know, it's interesting because Have You Seen Her? And Old Girl, those songs were more than 3 minutes long.
Sure was.
And
508.
yeah, and you know, the rule of thumb with radio back then, because it was format radio, is that they wanted to get as many commercials as they could get in an hour. Rule of thumb that if a record was over 2 minutes and 35 seconds, they really wouldn't play it. But you broke the mold, man.
well, Have You Seen It? Have You Seen It was so big, and there was a 508 record. The timing was 508. The guy said, "Leave it just like it is." That was shocking to us. He said, "Just leave it."
You know,
but it's amazing. It's amazing, Geator, how we kept with it. You know what I'm saying? But we had great management. You know that. You know all about our management situations. Yes, and we had good people behind us, man. You know, we did the Dick Clark show, Sammy Davis Jr.'s show and company. We did some, and then Soul Train. We did some of the greatest television shows at the time in the world, really. And that's what kept us going.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because for the people from Philadelphia that are watching us right now, Bandstand was the dance show. If you appeared on Bandstand and if you had a record and if Dick Clark played it, nobody was able to cover that record and you had a national hit. When Dick Clark moved to the West Coast, the one show that created hit after hit like Bandstand for the black performers was Soul Train. Correct, Marshall?
Absolutely. And we started off with Soul Train in Chicago. That's where it first started. And then we did the pilot in Chicago, first done. I put the Dales, Tyrone Davis, Barbara Ackland, the Artistics, all of us together. We went down there and did the pilot for him. And he said, Marshall, I'm going to send this pilot to California, see if I can get him a deal. He sent it to California. Next thing we know, he called us back and said, hey, we got the deal out there now. So things start growing. It was scary, though. Things is happening so fast, man.
You know, every major star appeared really soulful as far as rhythm and blues. And by the way, folks, that's why the Soul Train cruise, which goes out every year, and they will have it going out next year. And Marshall, you've been on those cruises. Tell me about the experience that you have when you're on that cruise with all the artists.
Well, everybody's just so like family when you're on that cruise, especially Soul Train cruise. When you're out there, everybody, we stars and everything, but it's like we'll remember with the people, enjoying the people, and they can't wait till it's our time to go to hit the stage, and they get to see everybody. They see the Commodores. I mean, every act that you think about has been on the Soul Train cruise and still going. So that's one of the top cruises everybody look forward to every year to be on.
Well, they do some great things. I've said this about Alan Rubin and Janine and Jason and all of Mike Jason and all of the guys that are a part of that. And for you people out there, you have to experience the music as we experience it. And these cruises, whether it's the Malt Shop Memories cruise, whether it's Soul Train, whether it's the 50s, whatever other, they have all kinds of music, country cruises and things of that nature. It is a performer like Marshall and all the other guys that relive our life because of these cruises. Marshall, we were able back in the day to do record hops, radio shows, TV shows. There's no longer the outlet to do what we did back then. And this new thing, which I don't get, you get it better than me, with this new modern technology, keeps us with the audience,
Absolutely. But I mean, if you got the technology right they have today, that's what keeps me going, really, because I've been doing it. My wife told me before she passed away 20 years ago, she said, listen, you got to learn how to work this computer. I stayed up all night making mistakes. Every time I make a mistake, I go back at it again. Oh, I did that wrong. So let's get it. I got that right. And then went the next day. It got so mad, a whole week, 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't even go to bed at night. I stayed up all night trying to figure that thing out. Now it works for me.
Listen, you're a better man than me because I hate this modern technology. Because look, this is my studio, man. I play records, man. I play CD. I dance, you know what I'm saying? And for me, not to have the audience other than what we're doing, man, it's a killer. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way when you can't perform, man.
Absolutely. But you know what? You got more people just like this show here. And I know I'll probably get a copy. Once I get a copy, and I'm going to put it on mine. Well, I got 10,000 people over here. My other people, they got 10,000 of their friends. The other one got another 10,000 of their friends, another 5,000. So a lot of people is going to see this show that you're talking about right now.
It's reliving everything we've done. Tell me about the new stuff. I understand from talking to Guy Vistola, you recorded something brand new?
Yeah, we did a song called Peace. We did that a little while back. And Guy's just releasing it. So he wanted to put it out there. He's singing a lead on it. And then we got Denroy Morgan. He's a guy from Jamaica. He's doing his part. He does a great job. And we sing in the background, So he's pushing that as well. And we'll see what happens. Of course, about Power to the People. It took off yesterday. We just had to release that again. Right. It already sold 1 million records. But we had to release it again because of what's going on here today. More power to came out yesterday.
You're talking about all this. When did you do My Side of Love? What year did you do that?
My Side of Love came, I think, in 1976 or something. No, not 76, about 74, something like that.
Do you know that this is one of the most requested songs that I get when I do my get-togethers at Memories in Margate, whenever I do my one-nighters? I mean, and I think that's a testament to the music, because you and I have always talked about it. If music is good, it's timeless, man, and it can always come back again,
Absolutely. Well, on My Side of Love, we used to come to Philadelphia all the time at the Dale and all them places out there, and we never sang Try My Side of Love as well. So the band, they had Moon in them from Philadelphia there. They always tell me, man, y'all got to Try My Side of Love in the show. We never did it, man. And then lately, about 4 years ago, I think it is, we started doing it, and it gets over everywhere we go.
You know, Marsha, I look at you and I smile because I looked at you on stage with me at the Kimmel Center, man. And when you started to play your thing, people just standing up, man. I mean, just
Well,
standing
you know,
up, man.
I'm famous for playing that you know, that melodica. I'm famous for playing that on that old girl. They look for that. They look for that choir. Wah, 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 wah. They look for that, man. You know, I love it.
What
Especially
song?
overseas, the same thing. Overseas is the same way in London and all the places we played over there.
What songs, when you were with Carl Davis, did you want to do that you didn't get an opportunity to do?
Well, on Carl's side, some of the songs we did a lot of. We like the Temptation songs a lot. You know, that's what before we had any hits ourselves, we were singing all Temptations songs, and so we did. I'm gonna make you love me. We recorded that over again. So we never put it out or anything. It was an album song. That was one of the greatest. Then we got In the City Blues. Marvin Gaye's In the City Blues. We
Yeah.
put that out. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
on one of our albums.
I'm Going to Make You Love Me, by the way, was written by Kenny Gamble, the Leon Huff from Philadelphia, you know. And, yeah.
You know, I didn't even know that, but we recorded it.
Yeah, well, the original version was by Madeline Bell. And then
Oh.
Dionne Warwick's sister, Dee Dee Warwick, had a version. And then the Temps did it with the Supremes, I'm Going to Make You Love Me. I didn't
But
realize...
Dee Warwick did our first show with us at the Regal Theater. First time we came in, Dee Dee was on the show.
Really? You know, Dionne Warwick was with us also at the Malt Shop Memories Cruise, and we were talking about Dionne Warwick, and you know this, you know, Dionne Warwick, along with her sister Dee Dee, and along with Sissy, they were doing backup at the very, very beginning. You know, do you remember that?
Wow. You fine. I think that's you talking about back in the day now.
The Artistics, whatever happened to them?
Well, I talk to Marvin all the time. Marvin wants me to, after we get through with the situation we're going to talk about for next year, it's coming up. I'm getting ready to go out and do my full shows now. They're going to have me, because we'll be just about headline and everything after we leave the 27th, you know, next year, May, out there in the Hollywood situation. So after that, we're going to start going back, doing all of our songs where we can get in all of our music, because we had so many hit records out there, you know, the same, you know, like, you know, we write a letter to myself, coldest days, stone out of my mind. You know what I mean? Just on and on and on, man. Try my side of love. Have you seen the old girl? You know, lonely man. So many records. And then when we do concerts, sometimes we used to do, they give us a half an hour, so we couldn't sing our songs, man. And people used to get mad about this. They say, well, dang, y'all didn't sing my song. So I said, which one is that? So they come up with that one. I said, yeah, it was a hit, all right. It was in the top 10. We had about 20 top 10 hits, as well as those number one hits. And then we had the rest of them, you know, came up the charts other kind of way, or maybe a 20 or 25 or something. But we had a lot of songs out there over the 60 years we've been together.
You know, some of our people have been asking questions, and one of the questions is from a girl by the name of Rhoda. She wants to know, what did you think when you worked with a major star like Sammy Davis?
Oh, man. When I did Sammy and Company show, television TV show, man, that was amazing. We did Toby, our song called Toby. We did it on his TV show. And then after we sung the song, he got off the panel and came over there to us and started talking to us. I said, I can't believe this. I was sitting up here talking to Sammy Davis in his face, one of my idols. And I just couldn't believe it, man. It was out of sight, man. You know, we was ready because we went in there and did our thing, man. We had this big band there live on stage, and we just did our thing. And I love your shows, man. When we come in your shows, you look like we got everybody on the stage except the kitchen sink.
Yeah, he had George Rhodes at that time. George Rhodes was the orchestra doing it back there. You know, when are you going to write a book?
I got a book out now called Last Man Standing. Doing very well, and you know a lot of people in that book. You know, Tia's in there. You know, a lot of folks in there.
Yeah, you know the book that I've written, and people ask me about the book. In it, you're in it. And we talk about Sammy, because if you want to talk about an influence in my life, and I met him, and it's in the book, I met him when I was 13 years of age, and I didn't know who he was, and I was just jitterbugging, and at that time, I was the head of the dance committee. One of my jobs was to, if the record was over, when Bob Horn would say, "We have company," I would have to get the artist that was company and say, "Now, when Bob says we have company, you hit that spot." So
Right.
I was 13 years old. And what happened is I saw this little cat, and I went over to him and I said, "Now, Mr. Davis, when Bob Horn says we have company, that's your spot." He said to me, "Hey, man, where'd you learn how to dance like that?"
What?
I said, "Man, it's a natural thing. I want to impress the girls." He said to me, "Man, 1953, you're like a little white me."
Boy, that's all right. That's all right, man.
Let me tell you, from that moment on, we became dear friends, and sadly, he passed away. He was just 64 years of age, and I was there with Altavis, my Brit at that time, and the kids, and he was one of the most influential performers for people to learn about show business. Do you agree on that, Malcolm?
I, I definitely agree with that. Because it's hard to find somebody that know about show business. So when you get one, you got to hang on to that.
Do you see Gladys? Do you hang? Because I'm going to be seeing her, as soon as we go out on the cruise.
She gonna laugh at you. She gonna say, "You had Marshall? That's my drummer." Yeah. I seen the last time I seen Gladys. I spoke at Michael Jackson's burial, and she was there with me. We sit there and we talk, and I laugh about it all the time. I say, "Gladys, if it wasn't for you, I don't even know if I would have been out here like this today." But it was amazing for us. She said, "You played drum for me. Now you singing on the front line."
What about her brother Merle? Is Merle still around?
No, I think Bubble's the only one.
Bubba's the only one, right? Yeah. It's interesting because we talked about Chicago. I mean, as you know, Gladys came out of Atlanta, and
Joe did.
that was another sound. What about the music of today? Give me your thoughts on that stuff.
Well, it's some good music of today. They just got to watch their lyrics. I think their lyrics is more of the streets than real life of your families and things. So we had love music, and when we made babies off our music, and they do all kind of things off of music that's happening today out there. But Beyonce, when she came to get our song and our music to Crazy in Love, I couldn't believe it. And I got back home, and she had cut her song "Crazy in Love" and I played drums. I was playing congos on there on the original. That was our song called "Are You My Woman?" Tell me so. And she kept our same music. All she did is speed it up a little and add a few more instruments to it. And she come out with a Grammy, man. She did 8 Grammys off that song, and we sold about 2,000 records when we did ours.
Tell me how important, as you know, publishing for an artist.
Well, publishing is the whole thing. If you got that publishing and you're the writer, hey, you will make money the rest of your entire life. Because when you go into movies and different things like that, they got to go through the publisher to get the right publishing rights to put that on the movies. And the artists, of course, we get our performance rights. But Eugene Record got the publishing, well, he didn't get the publishing back in them days, but he got the writers. It was kind of hard for artists to get publishing back in those days. But he got publishing, as time went on, But that's the same thing in the whole business. If you're not even a singer and you're the publisher of the song, you got it made. And if it hit.
Well, you also had good management. A lot of the early artists, man, who wrote it, they wind up signing it away to the record company. But you had management back then that really watched out for you.
Well, we had the best, and you know who our manager was.
Yes,
well,
I do. TV on radio and TV all over.
Yeah, you better believe it. We had the best of all when it comes to management. So I mean, I really love it. I love them to the day they left here, and I never forget it. If it wasn't for that guy, I don't know. Might have still been singing on 43rd Street here in Chicago.
Tell me about some of the clubs in Chicago, man, back then. I mean, the clubs back in Chicago.
Well, we had the Burning Spear, we had the High Shepherd Well, where Earth, Wind, and Fire used to play every week. We had them there every week, and we had the Club de Lisa, where Red Fox played all the time. Would
Yes.
coming out
Yes.
of
And
this out
Laverne
high.
and Laverne Baker. Laverne
The
Baker.
Burn, yep, the Burn Breaker too. You did there's some giants. You talking about some really giants, and the young folks don't know nothing about that.
You
But
know, you
those
know,
were giants.
it's funny we just mentioned Laverne Baker because Johnny Ray took his
Wow.
style from watching Laverne Baker on stage at the Club de Lys in Chicago back then.
No kidding.
Yes, yeah. I mean,
Wow.
The entertainment world that we live in, we give, we take, we learn from each other, and yet we pass it on to another generation of people. And I think you said something which is important. A lyric of a song reaches you, it touches you, it tells you where you've been, where you're going, what you feel. You're right. If a lyric is not good in today's music, it's derogatory and it's not good. You know that, Marshall.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I learned one thing, and that I didn't know from the beginning. I always thought R&B. You
Yes.
can't think R&B. You got to think music. Period. You got to
Yep.
look at both sides. That's why we get our start in Hollywood. People come from all over the world to see the stars in Hollywood, and they got to know who you are. They're not gonna know who you are just for the R&B stuff.
Yeah.
You got to have a crossover, okay? And that's what got us to start.
Well,
That old girl
yeah.
and that heavy singing.
Let me tell you, Bobby Darin, we talked about Bobby Darin was the first one of a rock and roll artist to cross on over into the popular music of the day. And Berry was smart enough, as you know, to get his artist and change the material and start to do great material other than what they were writing with Holland Dozier and Holland. And that was able for them to get into the Copacabana, able for them to work Vegas as you worked Vegas because it was the music. And you're right. Music is eternal. Music, if it's good, it's always good. And I tell you, Marshall, another thing that I never forget, Jackie Wilson saying to me, and Gladys, and I think you said it to me in the dressing room when we were in Philly, country music is as soulful as rhythm and blues ever was.
Yep, yep, yep. But you got to have a crossover record now. If I ever record it again, and well, we got so many records in the can, all my guys are gone, but we got so many songs that people never even heard of. It's in the can. We can put them out there, and it can go on and on and on. And all of those are crossover songs, And crossover songs is where it's at. I found out that because look at us. We out there with Humphrey Bogart, Marilyn Monroe, James Cagney. And I would never believe that in my lifetime that we'll be out there in Hollywood Walk of Fame on the star out there with them.
I have a question over here from Ronald. He's from Detroit. He said, how do you compare the Chicago sound to the Detroit sound? How do you compare that?
Well, the difference is the musical incline. We had our own sound for the band. Detroit had their own sound for their band. They had some Jameson and all them guys over there in their band. I mean, they had their own sound, how they toned up their instruments, how they make their sounds in the studio. And we had our own sound in the studio. We had Bruce Redeem. Bruce Redeem was the guy who ran all of our sound. And then after he left, he got a deal with Michael Jackson. And then Michael took him out to California, and they did the Thriller album out there. So, but he took our sound and gave it to Michael Jackson because he was, when we go in the studio, we do one take. We rehearse our stuff at home. When we hit that studio, we got it all down pat. We don't rehearse in nobody's studio because it's too much money to be in there wasting money. Rehearse at home. When you hit that studio, it's time to sing. So Bruce Redine always called us the one tape shy lights.
Saving money. I got a question over here from Janice, and she says, what group or what performer was your greatest influence for you to create your style?
Well, I would say two groups, three groups: the Flamingos, the Eldorado, no, not Flamingos, the Dales, and the Spaniels.
Okay, here's a thing here from someone, I guess it's Rodney. Rodney said he moved from Chicago and saw you at the Regal Theater. Is the Regal Theater still doing shows in Chicago?
No, it's closed down. It's tore down now. The original Regal Theater is tore down where I played with Gladys Knight at. But they got another theater on 79th Street that they opened up, and they called that the Regal Theater, but it's not the same. It's nowhere near when we had Moms, Mabel, and all those people back in the old days. Duke Ellington, bands like that, Count Basie. That's gone.
Someone said here's another question over here from Elaine. Did you ever work Las Vegas?
Quite some time, all the time. Last crowd we had in Las Vegas about 3 years ago. We had about 13,000 people.
Tell them the difference between when you would do the road shows, because I remember in Atlantic City there used to be a place called the Civic Auditorium, okay, on the Arctic Avenue, and all the black performers would be there, but there would be the bus would come in maybe with 4 or 5 or 6 different artists, almost like what Alan Freed did at the Brooklyn Paramount or at the New York Paramount, and basically what I do when I do the shows at the Kimmel Center. Did you do those bus tours with some of the other artists?
We did the same thing. We did the bus tour. We did the thing with Dick Clark Caravan tour. That was nice. We had Fabian on the show with us and Brenda Lee and all. They had some great acts over there. But we did a lot of the bus tours. Then we got our own bus. Shot Old Girl, name Old Girl. We started taking our own bus out.
You just said something. You did the bus tours with other artists, not only black artists, white artists. We all live together as a family, and I think that's what's got to be in America today. Black, blue, pink, regardless of what your religion may be, music is the thing that brings us together. And we are all in this God world together, and I think that's the most important message, Malcolm.
Well, I tell you what, if they ever change it and get it right, it's going to be gravy. Everybody's going to really love each other together and do their thing together, and it's going to be a better world for everybody. Trust me. And that's what we used to have. And we need to go back and get together and pull this thing really together for everybody. And you do what you do, what you see is what you get.
My man. Marshall, Malcolm, you are my main number one man. How much time do we have?
10 minutes.
We got 10 minutes. Sum up your career for someone now who's looking from the beginning to where you are, the experiences that you've had throughout the entire show business world.
Well, had quite a few of that. Like I told you, when we first went to Houston, Texas, I went there with Major Lance playing drums. Major was late coming to the show at Ray Barnett Cinder Club. So what happened is, Ray Barnett asked, he said, "Where's Major Lance?" I said, "He's still at the hotel." He said, "Man, somebody got to start this show and sing." So he gave me a microphone, and he put the microphone on my drums, and I sung Gene Chandler's song, Rainbow, and Nothing Can Stop Me, because I was a Gene Chandler nut back in those days. So I was playing drums then doing that. So after I get there, and Major got there to do his show after the show, he said, "Man, you sound pretty good singing over there." I said, "Man, that ain't nothing. You just got to hear my group in Chicago." He said, "What's the name of your group?" I said, "We the Highlights." He said, "They don't know nothing about no highlights here." I said, "Well, Muhammad Ali is our manager then, back in those days, from the beginning." I said, "Why don't we put Muhammad Ali's name up on the marquee? Let them draw all the people." we we went back there. Muhammad Ali had the people wrapped around the block, and we went in there and did our show, and the girls went crazy, man. So we ended up going back to Houston, Texas every month, back and forth, doing our thing till we got us a hit.
You know, we talk about Houston, Texas, man. I lived out there. I did. When Bob Horn lost Bandstand in Philadelphia, I went out to Houston, Texas. And Houston, Texas, a great record company called Duke Peacock. Man, with Billy Bland, do you remember that?
Yeah.
And the greatest was
You better
Johnny
believe
Ace.
it. You better
Johnny,
believe it.
yep. Johnny Ace.
Wow.
Remember Johnny
Wow.
Ace?
Yeah, I remember John H. before he passed. Back in the day.
Johnny, you know, so many wonderful performers. You know, you think about Sam Cooke, who opened up the doors, and you talk about so many of the family are not there, and I truly miss them. I really do. But thank God I'm still able to play their music and educate a whole different audience to what our world was about back in the day.
Yeah, hey. You know, me and you have been blessed. You know, we've been around a long time. I'm glad that a lot of people doing our music, like Fantasia. She did Baby Mama. That's a Shy song. We got MC Hammer did Have You Seen Her Over Again? That's, you know, of course, that's Shy song. We had Paul Wall and Paul Young. He did Old Girl Again. You know, so we have quite a few people doing our music, and that keeps us alive with the young people as well as our age people.
Well, you know, I said this, when young people hear our music for the first time, it's new. It's like Try My Side of Love. You did that in the 70s. Young people hear that today. It's brand new, and it's just as good as it was when it first came out.
Oh yeah. That's one of my highlight songs on stage now. I love doing Try My Side of Love.
Let me tell you, my dear friend, it's always a pleasure when I can talk with you. We'll be together shortly. And for the people out there, I want to remind you again that my man, Marshall, will be on the Soul Train cruise next year. And if they want to get tickets for and cabins, how do they do that, David? If they want to get small shop one? Yeah, small shop. But it's the same also for all of the cruises. You know, Flower Power cruise. That's what you do. Go to the screen and you can see how you can get your cabin. And of course, you can mention Marshall's name, my name, Gladys Knight's name. If you mention the performers, you're going to get yourself a good move on the cruises. So, Marsh, I got to say I love you, and we'll do it again, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for the call, and thank you for inviting me on your show.
Come on, I love you, my man, okay?
Right on.
Take care. All right, for all of our listeners out there and all of you out there, this is a way for me to communicate with you. I can't and I don't see you as much as I would like to see you. But I do my radio show here because it keeps me in touch with you. And all of the music that I play, no matter what it may be, this is the music that every time I put a record on, I think of you. Because whatever success I have had, whatever success any of the performers that we talk about on when we do the chat, it is because of you people out there and the love and the respect that you've not only given me, but for all of the performers. And for that, I thank you. And again, we'll do it next week. We're going to do a chat with Mary Wilson. And as you know, Mary is going to be on the Malt Shop Memories cruise with Gladys Knight and myself. And even though normally we would be going out right now at this point, because of the pandemic, it's been canceled. But we got a lot of great things coming your way. A lot of great artists will be on the cruise, and we will go out next year. I promise that. David, what else do we have to do?
We still got about 4 minutes left.
4 minutes left. Let's get some questions, okay? Judy Baxter, right? Any options still in the works for a movie about your life? Well, there have been 3 scripts that have been written about the book. There is so much in this book about my life, not only as a performer, but growing up in the streets of South Philadelphia, radio, TV, Sammy Davis, Don Rickles, Frank Sinatra, that we finally have a script, which I really like. And I believe by next year, there will be a production thing going on the book, okay? We have another question over here. Is Sid Mark still alive? Yes. My friend Sid Mark is doing very, very well. And as you know, Sid does a wonderful show syndicated nationally for Frank Sinatra. And when I think of Sid, as I said, when I think of Ed Hurst, I think about how these people were my mentors. When I first began on WHAT, Sid Mark was doing a show called The Mark of Jazz. And I was on the AM studio, and he was on the FM studio with another wonderful disc jockey by the name of Joel Dorn, who passed away. As a matter of fact, Joel Dorn was responsible for saying to Alan Rubin, you know, if you're going to do a Malt Shop Memories cruise, you got to get Jerry Blavat to host it. So these are the wonderful people that have been a part of my life. And Sid and his beautiful wife, they're terrific. They're doing well. His kids are doing well by the grace of God. Okay, another question from my man Pasquale. Hello, Pasquale. Any word on possible venues at Memories? Will the public be able to attend New Year's Eve extravaganza as you did at Dover Downs? Unfortunately, with this pandemic, I have no word on what's happening. I know I'm doing some private gigs, and I intend, as soon as people get adjusted to the climate change of the weather, to do some special things at Memories. I can do it at Memories because I own Memories, and we can do social distancing, and we can do dancing with mask on the floor. So Pasquale, I will try and let you know when we're going to do that.
Keely said, remind everybody about the New Jersey Free Press Contest.
What's this?
The New Jersey Free Press Contest.
The New Jersey Free Press Contest. Can you put that up on the screen? Because I have...
I don't have any information.
Okay.
She said she sent it to you. But...
Send it to me, but I'm ad-libbing, so I guess what we'll do, if you listen to the radio show, we'll do the New Jersey Free Press. I write for them, and they're having a contest. So, Keel, you understand? It's a show business. I'm looking at the screen over here. Another question. This is from Joanne. When are you going to go back to the Top House? I spoke with Gary, and we may be doing something at the Top House in Bridgeport. I love the Top House. I miss all you guys. I miss Joanne. I miss Richie. I miss Carol. I miss Barry. And I miss Joanne. I miss my little Viva la Cuba. I miss all of you wonderful people. But look, we'll be together. We're together every night. You hear me on Cool 98.3 from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Cruising 92.1 from 5 o'clock up until 7 o'clock. At WBCB up in Trenton for the gang in Bucks County from 3 o'clock to 5. And also on the internet. We're on the internet. So basically that's it. That's it. Listen, thank you. Just stay safe, be well, and remember that through my music and my radio show and what I do, we connect. I'll always be there. When you hear a song, say, the Geator, remember. And now remember, keep on rocking, because you really only do rock once. Thank you.